And we are live. It's Dr. J here in the house with Evan Brand. Today, we're going to be chatting about supporting and getting to the root cause of your environmental allergies. Evan, how are we doing today, man?
Doing well. Excited to dive into this because the leaves are falling at the time we're talking, and so many people complain. I just got a new, different, I guess a better life insurance plan, and the lady came over. The examiner who comes and takes your blood work and stuff for
Yeah.
your life
Yep.
insurance, and she comes in and she's like, "Oh my God, my head." This is some old lady. My head, my eyes, my nose, my ears. I'm like, "What's going on?" And she's like, "These outdoor allergies," and she was just completely miserable. And she's on all the conventional meds. And I talk with her and ask her, what'd you eat for breakfast? Pastries. So it's just interesting. The conventional mindset is outdoor allergies are just something that happens, and there's nothing I can do besides just take the over the counter or the prescription allergy meds, and that's it. And that's as far as the conversation goes, which is kind of sad because I would argue for many people, we've seen hundreds and hundreds of cases of people who actually were able to get off of their allergy meds or at least significantly reduce the dosing of them by addressing the root cause, which is what these drugs do not do. They do not address the root cause of these issues. They just help modulate the symptoms, whether it's working on the histamine issue or some sort of immune modulating effect or potentially steroids, but none of that's root cause.
100%. And so the problem is a lot of times with these type of environmentally sensitive patients, they're going to be stuck on some kind of a steroid inhaler for a while, whether it's clenbuterol or albuterol or some kind of steroid, some kind of singular medication, which does some immune modulating, or some kind of a, H2, 5-HT2 kind of receptor antihistamine, right? And these things all have side effects. They all have fatigue and brain fog as a potential side effect. And none of them are getting to the root issue. And the problem with like steroids, for instance, they tend to weaken your immune system as well. And then they tend to, when you're putting a whole bunch of steroids in your body every day artificially, your adrenal output may actually start going down. So then your adrenal strength starts to drop, and you may not be able to resist or deal with inflammation or stress as well.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of like the basic foundations of this. Where would you start with somebody who comes in with allergies in regards to testing? You and I are not typically going to run like a quote allergy test. You'll go to like a dermatology place, they'll run like a patch test, or an allergist may try to run testing for grass and all of that. But to be honest, your opinion may differ, but I don't really care what that test says about grass or pollen allergies, because that's the immune system that can be overreacting. So I'm going to be looking more at the functional test.
Yeah. So my perspective on these things, I always tell patients, I draw a line between cause and effect. Okay. Causal things are things that are going to dictate and change treatment. So I put allergies on the effect side. Like it's an artifact. It's something that's happening due to other upstream issues. So as we move things around upstream, above, below, inside out, everything works downstream and starts changing the effects. So we look at the effects, we may be able to trace them up to certain areas on the cause side, which is good to know. So I only talk about effects to the point where I can get closer to the cause and then make different causal changes, whether it's diet, lifestyle, supplement, doing different functional tests to assess the function of those underlying systems that are part of that causal link.
Check
And
your
then
mic. It sounds like it switched over to maybe like a headset or some other mic from the big boy.
let's see here. I'm testing here now. We're pretty good on my end.
Talk into it closer.
Testing. 1, 2,
Yeah,
3.
there you
Testing.
go.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know
I'll
what
just
happened, but it was on a different one for some reason for a minute.
Okay. I'll put a little bit closer here. No problem. So the first thing I always look at when we are dealing with these kind of issues is I'm looking at inflammation. So the first kind of major lever we're going to change is just the diet. Because if we are stressed and inflamed due to inflammation in the foods, whether it's too much processed sugar, excess omega-6 to omega-3 fatty acids, too much pro-inflammatory fats from junky conventional meats, too much carbohydrate or grains, these things are going to affect us negatively. Maybe we don't have enough really good saturated fats or enough good omega-3s or enough, keeping the carbohydrates down. We have too much insulin, too much inflammation. These things can affect our immune system. And the more stressed our immune system becomes, the more sensitive or overly sensitive it becomes. So it's kind of like, your neighbor knocks on the door and you're like pulling out your handgun, going to your door, ready to attack. You're being overly sensitive, right? Your neighbor just wants a cup of milk, right? So I always look at it as we want to be able to respond proportionally from an immune standpoint. And part of that is decreasing inflammation. So the first thing I look at is, where is inflammation coming from? So let's make sure inflammation from food's under control. Let's make sure inflammation from blood sugar is under control. Let's make sure we have the really good fat-soluble vitamins and not too much junky, refined, processed plant fatty acids. So we look at all those things, make sure insulin is under control, not too much carbohydrates, cut out the grains, cut out the casein-ridden dairy. All these things can be more inflammatory. So we have to look at all those vectors. Now, we can dive in deeper now to gut and infections and SIBO and H. pylori, but that's the first thing I look at because that can significantly calm down the immune system. Now, next, if we have a lot of histamine kind of symptoms, a lot of allergy issues, skin issues, breathing issues, headache issues, we'll also look at dropping down higher histamine foods as well, whether it's pork or coffee or teas or citrus or fermented foods. Some of these foods are considered to be like the holy grail of paleo, right? Like, oh, pasture-fed bacon. Oh, right. That's supposed to be good, right? Or like kombucha or sauerkraut or fermented probiotic food. Those are supposed to be good things, right? Well, they are. But if you have a lot of histamine issues, they may be enough to put you over the top. And we just got to be really careful with it.
Yeah, luckily I don't have any outdoor allergy issues, but I have had issues with histamine foods. So I am following low histamine diet and I feel really good on it. I feel much more clear-headed. Excess histamine can really affect your mind too, like in terms of emotions. Let me share my screen real quick before we leave the diet conversation, because this is something pretty new to me, but something I've been experimenting with clients and it's been going well. I've been looking at this, what is called oral allergy syndrome. And basically, we've talked about gluten cross reactivity. You and I have discussed this before, where this idea that certain foods like chocolate or rice or potato or corn can be cross reactive for gluten, meaning that certain foods will make the body think it's getting exposed to gluten. So then it creates some of this antibody reaction. Now, this oral allergy syndrome is kind of the same thing to gluten cross reactivity as foods are to outdoor pollens. So check this out. So it goes into like your ragweeds and mugworts and grasses and certain tree allergies that people have, but there's foods that can cross-react for these tree pollens. So here's some of the listing here, and people can just look it up for yourself, oral allergy syndrome. But these people that are complaining of outdoor allergies, what I'm doing is I'm putting them on kind of like this oral allergy syndrome approach. So these are all the foods that are cross-reactive. So look at fruits. You've got like oranges, melons, watermelons, raspberries.
A lot of those are high in histamine though, right?
Yeah.
A lot of those are very high histamine. So that makes sense. They're
Yep.
almost all high histamine.
Yeah. Let me zoom in here. So then you go into your vegetables. Once again, these are going to, like corn can be high histamine. So can peas. And then you go into like your nuts. So like hazelnuts and walnuts. You've got chickpeas. You've got almonds, which are interesting. I feel fine with almonds. I've had some people get off of them and they feel better though. So anyway, when you look at symptoms of this oral allergy thing, it's itching of the throat, mouth, lips, or tongue. It's swelling. And then of course it can be more severe. Hives, asthma can be involved anyway. So you're right. It's kind of like a low histamine approach with a couple.
It's basically autoimmune low histamine.
That's right.
That's basically what it is, which is good. That's a good first kind of template because you cut out people. I see a lot of patients are like, but if I don't have an autoimmune condition, why should I do an autoimmune diet? It's like, well, because an autoimmune diet isn't just specifically needed for autoimmune patients. An autoimmune diet is kind of like the ultimate anti-inflammatory diet. And people that have autoimmune issues, they need the ultimate anti-inflammatory diet because they have excess inflammation and their immune system is part of the reason why that is, because their immune system is joining in the attack. It's like you got self-attack. It's like you just got beaten up and then now you're punching yourself as well, right? You're beating yourself up. And so the more we can reduce inflammation, just think of an autoimmune diet as the ultimate anti-inflammatory diet and is independent of whether you have a diagnosed autoimmune condition or not.
Yeah. So we personally and clinically implement that a lot and it works great for people. Okay. So let's move on. Let's go into some of the other stuff. You and I've talked about this bucket analogy, and I would argue the outdoor environmental allergies are really just a sign that the the bucket is already full, so they can't handle the outdoor environment. I mean, our ancestors, they were outside all the time. They probably didn't have these allergy issues. Why do we have them? Why are allergies in kids such a huge thing now? Why are so many kids on inhalers and stuff? I mean, this is not something that's happened until the last 100 years. And I would argue toxins are going to be a big one. So if we're talking pesticides in the food, if we're talking the impact on the gut with regards to the pesticide killing off the good bacteria in the gut, and then you've got kids with bacterial overgrowth, as you and I did a whole podcast on SIBO and histamine. We know there's a huge link between bacterial overgrowth and histamine problems. So meaning your bucket's already going to be so full just based on you having overgrowth of bad guys in the gut. What if your kids had ear infections? You put them on antibiotics, and then they have an overgrowth of bad guys and potential yeast like candida problems as well. That's already going to fill up the bucket so much they're not going to tolerate the outside.
Exactly. So we have kind of the diet stuff change. That's going to make a big difference, right? Autoimmune, low histamine. We're going to look at the gut, right? People that have histamine issues or allergy issues, they tend to have poor digestion. So even a healthy diet with foods not broken down properly may be an issue. So we may want to work on good digestive support, enzymes, acids. We're going to want to look at the gut, like you mentioned. If they have a lot of, let's just say, mold or mycotoxins coming in from their home, that could be a stressor. They have a lot of yeast or candida, that could be a mycotoxin stressor as well. They have SIBO or H. pylori, that could be a stressor too. All of these things could be potential stressors on the gut side. So we'll kind of set the table with all the first things I mentioned. We'll work on getting the digestion better, and then we'll look at seeing what's going on in the guts. Now, in the meantime, there's a couple of palliative things we can do. We can also get them on some natural histamine degranulators, things that help us to break down histamine so it's not going to be hanging around us and creating inflammation. So those things could be stinging nettle or quercetin or bromelain or N-acetylcysteine. I have a product called Allerclear with a lot of those in there. That's a great product. That's great. We may also add in some DAO, which is diamine oxidase. It's an enzyme found in kidney tissue, and it's very effective at breaking down histamine as well. So we may add some of those 1 to 2 things in there, which are very helpful. And then the next thing on top of that is doing some sinus rinsing techniques. Because what happens is a lot of times the allergens, they sit up in your frontal sinus or your maxillary sinus here, in these areas here and here, frontal and maxillary, and they just sit there. And then your immune system is constantly exposed to it. It's like being dirty. The dirt's on your skin, you haven't showered. So think of it as you're doing a shower for your sinuses to flush these things out, because the topical shower is not going to hit the insides. So the more immune sensitive you are, the more these allergens sit inside your maxillary or frontal sinus, there's going to be a problem. So we're going to be flushing that out 2 to 3 seconds with each nose with a really good sinus rinse bottle, 2 to 3 seconds of flow, kind of blowing your nose in between to really flush that out. And we'll have a good filter to distill water with some kind of a mineral solution, so it's pH balance, and some kind of a xylitol or biofilm disruptor to flush and break down some of that bacteria or mold junk that could be, or just allergens that could be up in your sinuses.
Yeah, and how you know that you have an issue with that is if you do a sinus rinse and you have an increase or a decrease in symptoms. So any change at all. Now, some may not notice much and you're still doing yourself a favor. However, most people that are already pretty hypersensitized, they do notice a significant change. So what that may look like could be an increase in brain fog. It could be anxiety. It could be some vision changes. It could be all of a sudden you feel more clear-headed. Your mind, your thought are more clear. So when I first started doing sinus rinses, I was just really like almost drunk. I was like, whoa, I must have just started breaking down biofilm, killing something off in there. Now I do the sinus rinse and I get more clarity. So that's something you want to look for. And silver, some people use silver up the nose. There are some nasal sprays that have some silver hydrosol in there. You mentioned the Xlear essential oil blends. There's a couple that you and I use that are designed for the sinuses. So those can be really helpful. And like you mentioned, it's going to be kind of draining the bucket. So if you clean up the diet, if you're working on the gut infections, if you're going organic, and then now you're doing sinus rinsing, you're doing the herbal antihistamines like you're talking about. Vitamin C, I want to throw that in as well. Vitamin C can help break down, or it can kind of speed up the degradation of the histamine. So for me, if I know there's going to be a high histamine meal, I'll do a little bit of the DAO or some vitamin C and or quercetin beforehand, and it can really, really help blunt the effects of it. So histamine's addicting too. I mean, it is a neurotransmitter. So it's really tough for certain people when they go low histamine, they'll start to crave high histamine foods. And that's a pretty interesting phenomenon that I've seen. And like chocolate, in general is going to be higher histamine. And so a lot of people will really have cravings for chocolate ramp up once they're on a low histamine diet.
And as we get the inflammation under control, we're flushing out some of the sinus stuff. Oh, also, we may also get a really good high quality air filter to get the environment really clean. Maybe there's a lot of pollens or cedar in your home. Maybe there's some mold toxins. We get that flushed out in the air. We get some of the food under control. We get some natural antihistamine support. We work on better digestion, get the inflammation in the diet, get rid of some of the gut stuff that's going on, some of the gut infections or gut permeability stressors. And we can start to add certain foods back in over the next few months. So this is not like a death sentence. And it always comes down to like histamine load, right? Maybe with all those other things in the past, you were going to have symptoms, right? But as soon as we're flushing out the nose, changing the diet, adding that support, we may be able to start getting some foods back in one at a time. So we just got to keep an eye on that.
Yep. Yeah. And air purifiers are huge. I mean, I would not live in a house, period. No matter how clean, new, beautiful the house is, I would never live in any house that doesn't have an air purifier. So I know you've got one in your office. I've got one in my office, bedrooms, living areas. We've got them everywhere. I mean, and I'm not in the city, but I still want to make sure that I've got good filtration. And so we love and use the Austins. So
yep, we have the Austin Air too. So we'll put the links down below, Evan, for kind of the links for our site. So if you guys want to support the show or want to get a high quality air filter, I think we probably recommend the same. The HealthMate Plus is a good first start, or if you're really sensitive, the Allergy machine is a good second one. But the HealthMate Plus is my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of bang for your buck, that one's the best one. I've got the Molecule too. We've talked about this in the past, but the Molecule is different technology. The blue light on it is kind of annoying, especially at night because you're getting blasted by the light. So you've got to pretty much turn that thing off or put it on dark mode at night, which then all that means is it's just running the pre-filter, which essentially does nothing. And there is sort of a plasticky smell due to the way it kills the VOCs and such on the Molecule. So the Molecules, you could call it more of a chemical treatment of your air where it basically breaks up pollutants and toxins and kind of destroys them into really small particles versus the Austin is more of a good catcher's mitt. So that's why we prefer that one.
Yeah, the Molecule has the light, the PET technology, the photoelectronic light in there, which isn't the best for bedrooms because you don't want those lights active. So we'll use the Austin Air HealthMate Plus, which has the 15 pounds of zeolite and activated charcoal, 30 pounds total. It also has the HEPA attached to it, and then it has the potassium chloride in there as well that filters out the VOC. So that's what makes it a little bit more unique. The regular HealthMate doesn't have the regular HealthMate doesn't have the potassium component.
Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, that thing is so heavy. It literally feels like it's like military grade. People throw that term around, but that thing is heavy duty. So
it is. Like I have some shelves just put into my office here and they're off gassing a little bit. So last night I kept the Austin on high just to filter out any VOCs that are, in the air because of the off gassing.
Yeah, let's go into the VOCs for a minute because, we kind of got off the histamine topic. So
yep.
you mentioned reducing the load. Now, if you're in a new home and you are not extremely anal about all of your choices, there's going to be potential formaldehydes. There's going to be VOCs, these volatile organic compounds that are going to come off of your paint. If you have vinyl windows, they're going to come off of your window frames. There are any glues that were used on your plumbing fixtures, any of your baseboards that were painted, any of your cabinetry in your kitchen that was pre-finished or pre-painted from the factory that comes in, that stuff can off gas for literally years. And now we build our houses so tight and so energy efficient, which saves us a little bit of money, but now the houses don't breathe. And so now these VOCs, even the EPA says indoor air pollution is 10 to 100 times more toxic than outdoor air pollution. And so I'm extremely anal, and I'm actually building a course out on like healthy homes because I've had to pick and choose like a lot of materials. But the long story short, and paints too, even low or no VOC paints like Sherwin-Williams and Burr or Behr, however you pronounce it, some of those conventional brands, they're still toxic. Yes, they may say low or no VOC, but they're still toxic chemicals. So you only want to use mineral-based paints. Justin and I've talked about Roma Bio being a good mineral paint. That stuff is amazing. And then drywall too. I mean, you've got different chemicals that could be in certain drywalls. If they're not gypsum based, they're going to be synthetic. You've got flooring chemicals. So you've got seals, you've got varnishes, you've got clear coats on stuff. If you have like wood beams, I mean, it's easy to fill a house with toxins is all I'm saying.
Yeah. I mean, just if you're going to do painting or any of that stuff, right? just make sure you're out of that room. Like when we do any painting, we try to be out of the room, and we just put a really good air filter in that room and put it on high and just do your best to suck out the VOCs. It may off gas for a while. But if you have a good VOC on there, a good VOC air filter on there, you should be okay. And then just, take your good natural support. It's hard to avoid these things at some time. And then the more sensitive you are, the more it's an issue. The less sensitive, less of an issue. But just have a good air filter in the background so you're sucking all these things up. And then, of course, would be some of the flame retardant things you may get on couches, or especially you see it on kids stuff. A lot of kids mattresses, carrying, car seats, those kind of things. So we always get flame retardant free. That's the PBDEs, polybrominated diphenol ethers, which are the flame retardants. So we'd always get those things PBDE free. And then we just have a really good air filter if something does have it. So we're filtering it up.
Yeah, it's even in kids' pajamas, which is just unbelievable. We had some clothes that were gifted to us when our girls were really little, and it would say flame resistant on the tag. We're like, oh my God, they're putting flame retardants in kids' clothing? Like, this is unbelievable, because those are very hard chemicals to get out of the body. In fact, cholestyramine, a binder you can use for mold toxin, is one of the only things that actually gets these flame retardants out of your bloodstream and out of your brain. So it's pretty unbelievable that these things are everywhere. And so, not to divert into the toxin podcast, but that's the note about lowering your toxin load in your home to lower your bucket so that you can tolerate the outdoor environment better.
Exactly. So the first thing that we like to do is make sure we decrease inflammation in our body. That's the first thing. We may look at digestion, look at the gut, look at the microbiome, look at things that are jacking up our immune system. Of course, if cortisol is out of balance, either extremely high or extremely low, that could throw things off. We may also look at strategizing sinus flushing. I have a video on that. We'll put that video in the show notes. You can actually watch me doing an actual protocol, getting the air filtration dialed in. If you're going to use paints with off gassing, just try to leave their home for a day or two and have a good air filter in there. Those are all good strategies. And then after that would be, changing the diet, adding in some natural antihistamine support, and kind of going from there. And start with the low-hanging fruit. If you have problems, get a good functional medicine doctor in there to really look at and investigate, come up with a plan for you.
Yeah, it can go a lot deeper than that. So we've done podcasts on these individual things, but mast cell issues, mast cells are part of the immune system that release histamine. Your mast cells can become activated when you get exposed to some sort of a pathogen or a toxin. So Lyme, Bartonella, mold, these are three big ones that trigger the mast cells to dump more histamine. Those are big triggers for me. I used to not have histamine issues at all, and then I developed some. I'm getting much, much better all the time. But there was kind of a straw that broke the camel's back for me. And so I've dealt with it personally, but, we see it a lot clinically too. So you got to dig deeper if some of the low hanging fruit is not being addressed, or you got to do that first. But then once it is addressed, if you still have problems, then there is probably something deeper, heavy metals, other type of toxins. You got to fix all of it. So you can't just go pop the quercetin and go gluten-free and everything's magical. For some people, it may be that easy, but the people that Justin and I are working with, they're people that have been to 5, 10, 15, 20 doctors before they get to us. So these people have probably already dialed in the low-hanging fruit, and that's why we're here clinically.
I find with those people, they tend to have a lot of environmental stuff. There may be some mold in their system. They may have some air quality issues, and they may have a lot of gut issues, because the more 80% of your immune system is in your gut. And so if your gut's permeable and you have gut stressors and you're not digesting foods well, that's going to create more gut stress, more immune stress. The more immune stress you have, it's because your gut's more permeable. And then everything that you're getting exposed to on the outer world is getting interacted with by your immune system. And normally we'd have some kind of a barrier protection, but now everything is now responding to your body, and your immune system is seeing all of it. And that can be a problem. Where normally there'd be some kind of a mucosal barrier protection. Now there's not. That protective barrier is now gone. It's like the front door is now unlocked. So your immune system get exposed to a lot of things that it normally wouldn't. And the gut permeability is a big, big first thing we have to look at.
Definitely. So there is a place for gut healing nutrients. There is a place for probiotics. Like we use a lot of Bifido. Really, really high dose Bifido can be helpful. Spore-based probiotics can be helpful. Medicinal mushrooms can be helpful to help modulate the immune system. We like herbs too. There's andrographis and astragalus and elderberry, and there's a ton that we could go into. These can be helpful. It really just depends on where somebody's at, because you can send the immune system the wrong direction. So in autoimmune cases and such, there are some times where we may not go straight to mushrooms. We may just focus on the gut first. But once again, it's kind of a case-by-case basis here.
Yep, exactly. Anything else you want to add today?
I would just tell people that there are answers, there are solutions to this. So if your allergist is not getting to the root cause, then feel free to reach out to one of us. We'd be happy to take you to the next level of healing, look into the gut, look into all of these different body systems, kind of get your total body burden figured out. And then we'll help plot the step 1, step 2, step 3, how to get you feeling better. So if you need help clinically, don't hesitate. Please reach out to Dr. Justin at justinhealth.com or me, Evan Brand, at evanbrand.com. And we're here for you guys. So we love helping you. We're extremely blessed with the knowledge we've gained, personally and clinically. And it's very rewarding to get people relief. That's what this whole entire episode was about. Relief. It's not fun when you want to go hike with your kids or grandkids and you can't because you're miserable, and then you got to do your inhaler because you can't breathe. I mean, God, that's just not a way to live. And there is a way out of it. So that's what we're here for.
Excellent. Well, really appreciate today's chat. If you guys want to reach in, evanbrand.com for Dr. Evan and justinhealth.com for myself. We'll be happy to connect with you all and kind of go over the different algorithms and what's going on underneath the hood so we can get to a lasting solution. Hey, Evan, great chatting with you, man. You have an awesome day. We'll be in touch.
You too. Take care now.
Take care. Bye.
Bye.